So Zach has finished a series, The Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Have you read it? Should you read it? Let's see what Zach has to say today.
So hi there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about fantasy books. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thanks for joining us today to hear something about some books that Zach has recently read that maybe you've already read, maybe you haven't, like me. I have not read these yet. They're on my TBR. The Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab, just like I have in my background. Oh, wait a second. Problem. I should fix that.
Yeah, where
Let me try some magic.
Oh, there it is!
Ta-da! Magic.
And notably, those are the covers I think look really, really cool. I have the later ones. They look like this. It didn't affect the quality of the book.
Okay.
I think those covers look really cool.
But so there's your evidence that Zach actually has read these books, or at least does physically own them. And we can probably take his word for it that he has read the books.
I sure hope I'm not just lying to everyone all the time.
So give us the names of each book. We know A Darker Shade of Magic.
Darker Shade of Magic, and then A Gathering of Shadows, and A Conjuring of Light.
Okay, and when did these books come out?
You'd think I'd be more prepared. The last of them, 2017. So...
Okay, they wrapped up in 2017. Now, just like last time when you did Darker Shade of Magic, what does VE stand for? Come on.
Victoria something.
Elizabeth. V.E. Schwab is the pen name, the way she goes by. Why? Why did you read this trilogy?
Because I'd been hearing about it, and I'd been hearing about V.E. Schwab for a while. Thought this one looked cool. Liked those covers. Didn't get those covers. And then after
we'll get her there. Okay.
They were quick, easy reads, but not too light. They still had some substance to them, and I just kind of ate them up. They were very enjoyable.
The genre they fit into is
clearly fantasy.
Okay. And a type of fantasy? There's so many subgenres there.
Somewhere between urban and epic, I guess. It's got a little bit of the fast, rough and tumble, quick through some things that you would expect out of like the Dresden Files in that pacing. But there are large-scale impacts and consequences, grand save the world kind of things that you would expect out of epic fantasy.
Oh, okay. We've got your review already for A Darker Shade of Magic.
Yes.
We don't need to rehash that. But just as a whole, did this trilogy take it places, go narratively in directions that made it worthwhile not stopping after the first book?
Yes. I think this could be a standalone book in that if you just read the first one and you're like, it's okay, you don't have to go on. But the second and third expand upon things that started in the first, make them into bigger and more influential, more consequential things, and give a broader scope to the story, increase the intrigue about a couple of characters, get that depth and exploration further. And by the time you've gotten through the second book, you put it down and you go, well, that was an annoying place to end it, and immediately have to read a couple of chapters of the third book. So I'm glad I didn't read these as they came out.
Now, the setting of the first book was primarily London. Mm-hmm. Lots and lots of different Londons.
Mm-hmm.
All these parallel worlds or dimensions and whatnot. Did that change in the second and third book, or did it stay focused on London?
Most of 2 and 3 are in London, and particularly one London. But there are pieces in other Londons, and there are pieces in one of the places not London. So there is some moving out and expanding a little bit, but still with kind of a focus bringing us back home to the city.
Overall, that setting that's created for the books, does Schwab really give you a setting that's rich, that's immersive, that you can feel it? I mean, on a scale of 1 to 5, how quality is this setting?
You get the feel, you get an understanding, and yet there's still enough groundwork laid for bits of teasers of history that you want to know more about. You know what you needed for the story, but it is interesting. So I'd give this easily at least a 4. I think this is quite an enjoyable setting.
And the overall depth that the plot expands through the trilogy, I mean, is it easy to understand still? Are things telegraphed, or is it full of plot twists and deep meaning? What are your thoughts?
I really think most of it, sure, there are twists, there are changes, there are things going on. Most of it is not so obscured and dense that you don't see coming. But maybe that's just me saying I'm an okay, intelligent reader. Maybe they are really cool twists. I appreciated and enjoyed them for what they were without not seeing them coming.
Okay. So if I ask you to rate that on a 5-point scale, the plot depth,
Depth, for me, I think we're going to go somewhere between like a 3 and a 4, if only because while it did have some depth within some things, it was relatively straightforward in my opinion on what it was, and I wasn't shocked. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there is room for there to have been more complexity.
so between a 3 and a 4, like a 3.5.
Sure.
How about the characters? You had one favorite character from the first book that you thought people would mostly go, how could you think this is the best character?
I still think that character is my favorite character.
Remind us which character that was.
Holland.
Okay.
And I think there's definitely something to be said for people liking other characters better. I respect anyone who loves Lila for sure. But for me, I love a broken character. I
Okay.
love a character with struggles and internal strife and a very complicated history with themselves and morality sometimes. Just the journey that character goes on, even through the first book, but then other things as well, perhaps, for however long they may or may not survive. Trying not to spoil things too much in any direction, but
Please.
I very much enjoyed that character, even as some people probably don't.
Some authors are just fantastic with character development, bringing people to life in an amazing, relatable way with motivations that feel very genuine and authentic. And you can just picture this being a real person. Others lean a little more into stereotypes and caricatures. Where on a 5-point spectrum would you put Schwab's character work in this trilogy?
I think for the most part, we put this at like a 4.25, maybe even 4.5. I think the main characters that we interact with do get some real depth and development. And even some secondary characters we see as more than just the roles they're in, but as actual people and with interesting little facets of their own. The greater world at large and the random people we run into here and there sometimes just kind of fill out a role and play that. But for the most part, people are intriguing. The more you know about them, the more you want to know.
4.25 is a pretty strong score.
I
So
think so.
that sounds great. How about Schwab's writing style? You were pretty impressed with it in the first book. Did that stay strong? Did it weaken as you went? Thoughts?
I enjoyed it. I think there's definitely room for it to have been bigger, more, but just the ease of being able to sit back and read it and let the story kind of wash over me was really nice.
Okay.
So for my preferences, I give it a 4.
All right. Any particular themes, messages the author is trying to express through the trilogy as a whole?
There's a big look at freedoms versus duty and the ethical ramifications of power, balance between power and humanity and what that means. There's the Spider-Man principles at work,
That does make
and
sense.
I think there's certain amounts of lessons to be learned about being content within oneself, but also looking for the growth and good that you can do with the power you have and acknowledging what your place in the world can be.
Those look like solid themes, actually. That's pretty good. I don't ask you to rate that, but you feel pretty good with the messages she's trying to express through this book. Through
I
these
mean, it doesn't feel like she's trying to say be a horrible person. So
and yet, with Holland, a broken character, being one of your favorites, there might be some degree of moral ambiguity involved in the
it's
story. It's not all
complicated.
black and white. It's
It's
shades of magic
complicated.
might also be shades of gray.
It's complicated.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any warnings? If somebody wants to read these, are there triggers they should be aware of? Particular elements that might turn a person off from the stories?
I have to again give the little bit of warning I did with Dark Shade of Magic. If blood or descriptions of blood are not your thing, there's not necessarily like the visceral violence that you find in hardcore, heavy, grimdark stuff, but there are injuries and description and some things that are sometimes kind of ooh. So be aware of that. It's in and related with some of the magic, so it's gonna be there. As well as if I've run into some people here and there who have a hard time with like loss of autonomy. If possession in any way, shape, or form is a big turnoff for you for a series,
Ooh,
don't do
I
this
want
one.
to be
It can
possessed.
be a
No,
little
that's
hard.
not what you're saying, but
And it's more just like if that loss of control of oneself
Mhm.
is triggering to you, be aware that that does exist.
Okay. Let's do it now. Overall, this series of 3 books, what do you give it for a score, a rating on a 5-point scale?
At the end of the day, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed some of the books I rated higher than that. Some of the books I rated at that. But as a whole, I think it does deliver a fun, good story. I very much enjoyed what it does explore. I think its ending was stuck well enough, but could have been a little bit more satisfying to me personally. And so the highest I feel comfortable giving it as a whole is a 4.
Sounds like sound rationale. That's what we have then. Another recommendation of a series that you might enjoy if you haven't tried the Shades of Magic series. Zach would say it's worth it. Give it a shot. And if you don't like it, never forget DNF. Unlike us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you give us a like and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. We've got tons of videos, books, movies, TV shows, random nerdy stuff. Check it out. We're fun people, and we think you'll find something to enjoy. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.